So would you like to start a garden but really don't know where to start? Well, I'm going to show you today how to start a garden from scratch, even if you've never had one, and things to consider when you're out in the garden. So here are some considerations. Do you want to have a garden that's in the ground, or do you want to have raised beds? Now, I opted for raised beds. I have a little corner of my garden where I have all my raised beds located. And this actually works out really good for me. I have a watering system so that I have all of my plants on timers, and it waters them every morning and every afternoon. So I don't even have to think about the watering. That's all done for me. And the other thing that you might want to consider is if you don't have a lot of room, maybe consider growing vertically. I always do my beans vertically. I do pole beans, and I get a huge harvest every year by being able to use these. I actually have cattle panels that I made into trellises, and these work so amazingly well for my green beans and my scarlet runner beans. You can see they just don't take up any room in the garden at all, and they provide a little bit of shade for some other things. So it works out really well. Another thing to consider when you're gardening is, can you keep any of your tools or things that you need out in the garden handy so that you're not running in and out of the house or running in and out of the garage? So one of the things I did was I set up a little fence around my garden. As you can see, this little white picket fence. And then I just bought an inexpensive mailbox at the Home Depot, and this is what I did with it. I just got a piece of wood and I nailed that I screwed it into one of those 4x4 posts. And then I have this mailbox available for anything that I need. I keep twine in here. I keep extra plant food, different tools that I use, a pair of scissors, gloves, and it keeps it all waterproof. It's just so handy. And sometimes I like this ledge because I can put my coffee, I can set my coffee here, and I can set my phone here. Works out really handy. I think another consideration when you're trying to figure out where to put your garden and how to set up your garden is that it has at least 6 hours of sunlight a day, but 8 to 10 hours of sunlight is really optimum. And this is actually the corner of my yard. This is morning. The sun will be going over this way. So my garden gets sun from early in the morning till late in the evening. And for me, that's good and bad. It's great in the winter. In the heat of the summer, it actually gets to be too much. I have to water twice, once in the afternoon and then once in the morning. But you definitely want to make sure that you have plenty of sun. Now, if you have a lot of sun and you find that your different things are drying out or burning, you also consider putting up a shade cloth over the top of your garden. And I do think this year I'm going to be doing that. I don't know if you can see the little hummingbirds on those scarlet runner beans, but they just love that thing. See those? So when you're trying to decide whether or not you want to have raised beds or in-ground garden or maybe even pots on your patio, it's also really important that you make sure that you can take care of whatever kind of garden you're putting in. If you have a garden and you've never done it and you say, oh, I want to have everything that's out there, and you plan your garden, it actually can be quite extensive amount of work. So oftentimes it's better to start with one raised bed than 10 that are going to be neglected. So maybe start off small, start off with one or two, see how you like it. Now, not only watering, weeding, taking care to pick everything. But you also have to, if you have a large garden especially, you have to be able to preserve and take care of all your food. And so that might be something that you need to learn as well, how to freeze your vegetables, how to, dehydrate, maybe canning, things like that. Because oftentimes people don't realize when you plant tomato plants, you have more than one or two. I mean, you're going to get a lot of tomatoes. You're going to get a lot of zucchinis. You're just going to get a lot of everything. And you're going to have to know how to put that food up so that it's still good, 6 months from now. So that might be something else to consider when you're starting a garden. The other thing I would recommend if you've never had a garden before is start simple. Start with things that will grow easy and give you good results really fast. I mean, there's so many easy things to start from seed. You can start with herbs. Basil is a really good one. Carrots, radishes, any kind of beets. Any of those types of things grow really well. They're kind of like a root vegetable. You just throw the seeds down, cover them up a little bit. If you water them, they're going to grow. Now you can start your garden with little plants that you get from a nursery or from Home Depot or something like that. But just remember, they're not inexpensive. Now, if you do a couple, yes, that's probably the case. But what I do is I start my seeds earlier than my garden. I actually put them under grow lights and I start my seeds ahead of time so that I don't have to buy anything from the nursery. Everything that you saw out in the garden, I started from a seed, every one of those plants. I didn't buy one plant, but I had tons of plants to plant in the early spring. So consider buying seeds and, putting those, get things you can put directly in the garden. Maybe you don't want to start things ahead of time. I always start my peppers, my tomatoes, any kind of eggplant, those types of things, flowers. I usually start those in pots from seed. But, if you want to maybe do the rest of the seed things like carrots and beets and herbs and things like that directly in the ground, maybe buy a couple of those other things from the nursery. That'll help keep your costs down. Another thing to consider that's very important is your soil. So if you're starting a garden and you've never had one before, don't just use dirt from your backyard. You're not going to have good harvest and that type of thing. So my recommendation is to do 3 parts. 1 part compost, 1 part garden soil, and 1 part some type of a fiber like cocoa coir or something like that. And you want to mix those together and have that be your base that you grow in. Then what I also do is I fertilize with a product called Triple 13. It's 13, 13, 13. It has lots of nutrients and things to get your garden going. And I also put in minerals. I put in rock dust, which is azomite, into my garden. Now I actually dig a big hole when I plant my plants, like say I'm planting a tomato plant. And my plant is this size. I'm going to plant a hole like another 3 inches deep, and I'm going to put like maybe a teaspoon of azomite and a teaspoon of Triple 13. Then I put a little bit of soil over it. Then I put my plant in it. That way, as the roots start to grow and the different minerals and different things get into the soil with the water, it's going to have all the nutrients that it needs to be a healthy plant. And you have to really remember, even if you're using Miracle-Gro and putting that on your plants, throughout the summer, you need to make sure that your plants are being fed. They're going to suck up everything from the soil. And I always fertilize my plants about every 2 weeks. I make sure that they're getting some type of fertilizer. And lastly, keep an eye out for pests. I'm an organic gardener. As you notice, maybe in my garden, I have different traps. I try to trap different kind of animals that get in my garden and rehome them if I can. But I really don't like spraying my garden unless I'm using like a little bit of Dawn detergent and water. Sometimes I'll spray that onto the leaves or if I have a problem with something. But I found if I companion plant, if I maybe plant one thing with another, it'll help keep the animals or the pests away. And also, you know, there's just all kinds of organic things you can do. If I have something that's not doing well, oftentimes I'll yank it out. I'll check the soil, make sure everything's okay, and just replant. I don't really like having a lot of pesticides and things on my plants. I like having an organic garden. That's part of why I garden. Organic vegetables and fruits are so expensive in the grocery store. So I found that if I grow them, I save a ton of money and I'm eating a lot more healthy. So that's about it. Anybody can do a garden. You just have to follow the simple steps: soil, sunlight, make sure you're feeding them lots of good, fertilizers, and, make sure they're getting plenty of water, and you should do just fine. I hope this was helpful. Let me know what you're deciding to plant this year in your garden. Maybe you're considering a fall garden or a winter garden. My garden's going to be coming to an end in the next couple of weeks, other than just a few things. And I'll actually let my soil rest for about a month, and then I start getting ready for my fall and winter garden. So I'll do different kinds of root vegetables at that time. And in the winter, I always grow lettuces. So I hope this was helpful. If you're not a gardener or you're interested in becoming a gardener, leave comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you're planting, how it's going for you. And of course, if you're an expert, I don't know if you'd be watching this video or not, but maybe leave comments for the people who are watching and give them some of your good tips. So if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give me a like, a thumbs up, or ring that bell for future notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.